This episode is brought to you by our chic, luxurious, elegant, and wonderful, delightful even, patrons.
For as little as $1 a month or $1 billion a month if you want, you can get access to show notes, early access first plays, unedited episodes, and the famous Patreon pools.
If that sounds like a good deal to you, and it should, check us out at patreon.com/NGP podcast. And at whatever level you're comfortable, you can lend your wallet and support to us making retro gaming content for you.
Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Nolan here.
And this is episode 388, and it is a Patreon poll! The second to last Patreon pool of the summer pool party.
No, I want
That
to
makes
keep
me
going
so
forever.
sad.
Get supplies while supplies last
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the supply drawer.
You could just say
Batteries not
while
included.
supplies last.
Okay, that's true. Question of the week. What is the best video game mascot of all time?
Whew.
Mario.
No, see, I knew
He's
that
not a
Mario
mascot.
was gonna. No, he is. He definitely is.
Oh.
He represents Nintendo at large.
Okay, I got you.
So Mario definitely is one of the most notable ones, Kenny. I'll give you that, but I certainly will not give you best video game mascot.
Okay, Pikachu.
Very solid answer.
Really? Is that your answer, Dustin?
No, but I did have
Okay.
him in the running. Pikachu
Yeah.
is a strong contender.
Absolutely.
He's a strong
Cute,
contender.
really recognizable on everything, and no one gets tired of him.
Everyone loves Pikachu. Like,
Yes.
that's just such a... And adorable. Like, oh, yeah.
Adorable.
Cute as
completely.
it can be.
Great answer.
I want to know yours, Dustin.
Yeah, I've got a few on the that you might not readily think about, and you probably won't agree with me. I've got two from the PlayStation era that I think are wonderful. One is Crash Bandicoot. I think he's a wonderful mascot. Goofball. I always liked Taz. Do you know who that is?
Tasmania.
Oh, yeah.
The Tasmanian Devil.
Yeah.
And there's similar vibes there for sure.
Yes.
And then I also really love Spyro.
Spyro. Okay, that's what I thought you were going to say. They're kind of a duo.
You just went right for mid.
Not mid. If this was a
Whoa.
tier chart, those are in the A tier for sure.
That's super yikes. That you just called Spyro mid.
I thought, Nolan, you were
He's adorable.
going to bring up Sonic.
And you're correct. I think Sonic. Because without Sonic, Sega would have been in big trouble.
You're right.
Like, and he's just great. Like he's kind of, I mean, he's not Mario's rival, but it's like because back in the day those companies were rivals. You know, Mario and Sonic have always been kind of like button heads, and it works.
Here's the thing with runners. You got runners who go the distance, and you got runners who go fast.
Okay.
And Sonic's got to go fast.
Okay.
And so he didn't go the distance. He fell off. He was super popular
Sonic
early.
fell off.
No, he
But
didn't.
he
Kenny.
did.
You heard it
but
here
he-
first.
That's
Yeah,
the
he did.
opinion of a man under a rock. People of America. That's not true.
I-
He's still here. He's got a new game coming out. Looks sick.
I will say Sonic does have the better visual compared to Mario. Mario
Yeah.
is kind of like the goofy guy. Sonic has a cool image.
Very cool. Yeah. I love it. And I love blue. I love the color blue.
Oh yeah, blue fur gives speed, red boots, completely naked from the ankle up. Like
His
that
shoes
is
are
what
sick.
you that is what you
Nikes.
Mario should have
That's
just
what you
been
want in a mascot.
Mario should have just been wearing shoes and he would have been a better mascot.
It'd have been a different game. That is for sure.
All right. Do you have opinions on the question of the week? You can share it with us and our community in our Discord. We've got a question of the week thread in our latest episode discussion channel. Come and join the conversation there, where there will be a veritable buffet of interesting opinions. Like in our retro game of the week, Brave Fencer Musashi.
Overview.
Brave Fencer Musashi is a 1998 action RPG for the PlayStation. We kind of had a brief conversation at the end of last episode when this game got selected, because Nolan, your familiarity with ARPGs puts it in a completely different category, right? So Diablo 4 is an ARPG.
Yes.
I saw discussion this week that ARPG and action RPG, spelling out the word and just putting it together with RPG, are two totally different kinds of games.
Maybe.
Can I just say that's stupid?
Well, maybe they are two different things. That's fine. Or they might be the same thing, and Diablo's presentation is just unique to Diablo, and so it kind of hijacked ARPG when you describe like the isometric top-down kind of view, killing evil things. But this one, I'm fine calling it an action role-playing game. I prefer adventure game, I think, but I'm not going to get caught up on it. I'm fine.
Can we non-abbreviate and call it a polygonal action role-playing experience?
Absolutely not.
I
will not
I
give
don't
that
know what
to
the abbreviation for all of that is. Suffice it to say, this is a different kind of RPG than Square, the developer and publisher of this game, was making at the time. In fact, this game falls squarely in between Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII.
Right.
Two of the biggest hitters of the era.
So, yeah, and maybe that's why it kind of, well, I don't know, did it go under the radar? I'm wondering how this didn't show. Sure, because Final Fantasy was huge, but like I didn't even know about this game until recently, like a month ago.
Yeah,
I heard about it, so I don't know.
Here's the answer to making this game more popular. Wow. Give it a different title.
I think the title is amazing.
Brave Fencer Musashi.
No.
That'd be right. What would you name it, though?
Complete miss.
What would you name it? Kenny's World?
Don't know, but not something that sounds like a biography of like a French fencer.
French?
I don't know.
I will say Final Fantasy is a cooler name than Brave Fencer Musashi.
It's a totally different kind of thing. I totally disagree with the title. I think the title's great. I think the artwork on the front is great. I think the only thing that it didn't have going for it was that at the time, it wasn't Final Fantasy. And again, it was coming out squarely in between 7 and 8. And here's the thing that was actually kind of cool that I found out this week, and this was a brilliant move on Square's part, they sold this game originally, it's obviously a disc for the PlayStation, with a demo disc for Final Fantasy VIII. So before you could play Final Fantasy VIII, you could play Final Fantasy VIII by buying Brave Fencer Musashi.
That's a sneaky,
good move.
Yeah,
So
that is
smart.
a sneaky way to get sales.
Move.
So good. I love that they did that. I thought that was super cool when I found out this week. And I do want to go back to the genre just a little bit, because whereas Final Fantasy at the time was doing turn-based fighting in an RPG setting, this was action-based, meaning you're not going into a different kind of fighting screen. You see the enemies on the screen, and it's button mash, hack and slash, whatever. You're just kind of like fighting them right then and there. You said, Nolan, kind of adventure game-esque, and you're kind of right. Early reviews of this game, don't get offended, said it was Square's attempt at a Zelda killer.
Zelda killer is a strong term. Zelda contender, maybe, but no.
You're not going to kill Zelda. Even if you did, it would come back as a Vampy.
I think whoever wrote it's mistaken. I'm not offended by that. I'm just saying, like, it's a way different thing than both of those things. I think it's an action adventure game.
That's Zelda
with Square's RPG signature like look to it and feel to it and characters. They knew what they were doing.
So y'all don't care, but I think it's kind of interesting. Miyamoto Musashi was a Japanese warrior who created and popularized the two-sword style of fighting with katana and wakizashi. That's real history.
Okay, I do care.
And so
that's awesome.
That's why this game is labeled as such or titled as such, not anything related to the French community, but because
the third word is not the problem.
Brave Fencer is the
Yes, it's terrible. Samurai warriors do not fence.
Maybe that's a translation thing.
I don't know, but just a weird thing
maybe,
to get
but if
hung
so,
up
it
on.
was a bad mistake. Like it's a terrible name. I'm sticking by that.
Musashi Den.
There is a historical relationship and context here with a real person from history,
which is awesome, and the name is awesome, and I love that.
Oh, the name of the game is awesome.
The person is awesome.
Who is still brought up in fantasy and games, and one of the things that y'all would be a little bit familiar with and might even trigger something is that Genji in Overwatch has a voice line that quotes Musashi, actually.
Ooh,
like the historical
that is
Musashi.
cool.
So
is Kojiro, I know that's another real person in Japanese history. Is that, I wonder if that was his actual rival, like in real life.
Ooh, I do not know, but that would be interesting.
Did he use 3 swords?
Okay. All right. Well, you know what's funny about that is that, it's a real like historical significance to the name and stuff, but then like the story which you're about to tell us, it has like the most
outlandish
lunacy.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I'll tell you the story in just a second. I do want to emphasize that this is a Patreon pool, and so it was submitted by 2 of our community members, Replicated Flame and Tobiop. So
congrats
nice
to both of you for us.
Great job on that. BFM, is that better?
Yeah.
Kenny?
Boofum is actually what we're going to start calling it.
Sure.
Okay. Boofum.
Follows
Barely.
the story of a young warrior named Musashi who is summoned from another world to save the land of all you can eat from the evil Thirst Quencher Empire.
Oh my gosh.
You're just now making
I was mispronouncing that.
Yes.
No,
I love
you
that.
shouldn't pronounce it all you can eat. It's a single word. Just pronounce it.
I was saying like hallucinate or something
anything.
stupid.
The crazy
probably...
No, anything is better.
The crazy thing for both of y'all is that you don't get to pick. It's voice acted, so you can just hear them say it.
I know, but I didn't put that together as like that's what they were
That was
saying.
Also my segue. It had to do with food puns because this entire game...
See, that's why I didn't know what you were talking about.
Nolan, every good guy in this game has a food-related name. Every bad guy has in the original had an alcohol-related name,
stupid.
but they had to censor it for our American audience and just has a drink-related
That's so
name.
ridiculous.
So one of them name was
That's
Saki. And
can I tell you that probably worked in
Oh.
Japanese?
Yeah.
Some of these translations are awful. I don't mind the joke, the underlying principle of the joke.
Kenny is coming out swinging today.
I don't know. This game had some misses, and most of them had to do with words and names.
It's all clicking right now for Nolan.
Yeah.
Well, once Musashi shows up in this new world, he must wield the powerful sword Lumina and rescue Princess Filet, it's a normal name,
I got that one.
in order to become the hero of legends.
Gameplay.
Right off the bat, when I started playing this game, I quickly realized that, okay, we've already said it, this is not your normal Square setup because you have full control over your character, which normally you're kind of in an overworld setting, maybe there's random encounters, and you go into taverns and stuff like that, and while you do that here, but it's like a Battlefield style where like the enemies are all around you and you have full control and you're swinging and jumping. It's almost, and y'all can shoot me down for this, felt like somewhat of a platformer at first, and I kind of still agree with that, in that I've got full control over Musashi and I just start attacking things like an adventure game.
There are platforming elements. I wouldn't call it a platformer.
Same.
We made somewhat of a comparison early on, and I think you're going to be hesitant to do so, but I really link it a lot with Zelda. These puns that I'm saying are accidental with this, but I felt a lot this week in so many ways, and I'll bring it up more than once, a strong connection to Ocarina of Time, how that feels.
Oh, sure.
I'm not mad at you for that. I didn't get that, and
Okay.
but that's fine that you
Interesting.
did. I got more like, ooh,
You said a
it's
platform.
it's actually, yeah, I definitely got platformer vibes, but I can't compare it to many games. That's either way. I did so. There's that reaction, and then as I continue to play, even through the first like tutorial stage, I did not like the way he controlled, and it took me longer than I'd like to get that down. So what are you doing? You're moving around, you're swinging your sword, and you're jumping. That sounds great, and the controls are responsive. But at first, early in the game, your range with your sword is quite short, and so there's like this dance of if you get too close, you're opening up yourself for damage, and like you want to spam your swings at the same time. So it just felt awkward at first, and then when you throw in the like main mechanic of the Bencho energy, I just I have issue with how it feels to control Musashi.
I don't think you're going to find tons of disagreement there because I do think it is a little bit wonky. However, I think you said the Bencho energy is a big component of this game, and it is. I think the larger component has to do with these twin swords. So early on, you do just have that one really short range sword that doesn't feel the greatest because of hitboxes, because of the 3D polygons that are going on, because of all of that. But quickly, you're able to obtain your second sword, which is, so you've got square, which is your katana, that short sword, and then you've got
Fusion.
Fusion, yeah, sorry. You press square.
Is the name of the sword.
Press square to use fusion, that short katana. And then you press triangle once you receive Lumina for this magical sword that has a probably double range as the katana and does
Way better.
Does greater damage but is much slower.
Slower, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually like the katana a lot, personally.
Katana's nice for speed.
I prefer Lumina.
But Lumina for the power is where it's at.
I mean, once Lumina starts getting like
Strong.
some powers,
Yeah.
Lumina gets powerful. But yeah,
so
Yeah.
the two sword thing is fun.
that's a major component for this game, particularly when you don't yet have some of the other abilities that you get a little bit deeper into the game. That partnered with what you brought up, Nolan, you've got the other thing that's super unique is that you're able to he throws Lumina, right? Lumina is the one that
He throws fusion.
He throws fusion. Well, I guess that would
Yeah.
make complete sense, huh? He throws fusion. You have to charge it up, which is interesting with R1, and you've got a charge bar screen. And once it's fully maxed, you can press square, and he chunks out his katana. And if it intersects an enemy, then you can mash square. And if you do that enough, you're able to absorb an ability from that character. And so, like, from one kind of enemy, you can get a stun ability where you can then stun people while you have it. With another enemy that jumps often, you can then have this pogo jumping ability for maneuvering around the environment.
It's enemy skill materia for those of you who were there for Final Fantasy VII, but are only playing the preview disc of Final Fantasy VIII at
Sure.
this point.
I love the idea of absorbing enemy abilities. I've always thought that is sick, and I really enjoy it here too. I just think the execution was awkward.
Why?
Because in the middle of battle, I don't want to line myself up perfectly with the enemy, charge while defenseless, maybe hit them when it goes outward, then mash square to absorb it. That's a lot to ask of me in a real-time combat scenario to gain an ability to progress
feel
to
like I
solve
ever-
a puzzle.
I don't feel like I ever tried to use it in the middle of the fray. Like in my mind, it
always
was more
wanted to get
something that I like chose to do like with an isolated enemy once I'd seen that enemy and what it did.
That happens
more
often.
based on like something else I needed to do or accomplish in the world. So
Sure.
I don't know. I didn't feel that like it is a little clunky. You gotta hit them and then you gotta hit the button a bunch of times. But like I like that you have to earn it. It shouldn't just be like wham.
I really enjoyed the isolated enemy moments where there's a clear puzzle that you need to solve and you're going to need an ability to do so. But I was using it a lot in battle because I I don't know. It felt like that was one of the main mechanics. I like to have an enemy attack on top of my swords, so it was a lot to ask to get one thing that sometimes is good.
I actually agree with you, Nolan. There are two complaints I had with this game, two primary complaints. One was the clunkiness of that mechanic, the slow charge time in particular. And having to angle yourself well in this 3D environment, it's tough, and you get locked in that. The thing that they do try to provide to help with that, I don't know if you noticed, is that you can kind of block some attacks that are coming in because your sword is kind of in a defensive mode at that point in time. So it helped mitigate it some, but it never felt good. Even, Kenny, when I did start just trying to absorb an enemy when it's just me and that enemy, it was still clunky.
It's a job.
The enemy would come after me, and you're having to back up. It was just clunky. Yeah. I like the idea. I think the implementation isn't the best, but it's cool to be able to absorb enemies and use the enemy skill.
I can buy that. But yeah, the functionality there is great. And they even early, they give you a wide variety of types of things.
They do.
You get utility items, you get long range kinds of attacks. Like there's some good thought put into providing enemy skills that are going to be interesting for you to use in the area where those enemies are.
Fighting isn't the only part of an adventure game. Like in Zelda, you have to go around and complete tasks and solve puzzles as well. And we'll come back to fighting because there's bosses and everything like that. But so you've got a village that's your kind of your home base. You're working out of while you're a hub world, while you're going to different environments. There's no fast travel, at least from as far as I've gotten in the game. So you're walking a lot, traveling a lot, kind of learning this map. And the thing that is unique here compared to other games like it, well, Zelda kind of has this. Ocarina of Time kind of has this. This game has a 24-hour in-game clock, meaning that there's a day-night cycle, and shops are open and closed based on those times. Not only time of day, but time of the week. Some shops are closed on Monday for some reason. Yeah, and some world events only happen at day or night or at certain times.
Stop saying Ocarina of Time.
No.
Day-night cycle. I saw some hate for this in Discord this week. A lot. And I definitely don't hate it. I usually like this sort of mechanic because it adds some sort of depth, but I think some aspects of it should have been optional. For example, the hardcore aspect of it where your fatigue is tied to your Musashi is nerfed if you're not keeping up with that. It didn't add much to the gameplay either, the day-night, other than having to worry about it. Down. There needed to be more of a reward for staying on top of the fatigue thing and the day-night thing rather than punishment for being bad at it or forgetting about it, because that's normally not in a game like this. And if it is like Ocarina of Time, it's not going to hurt you. Like, you're not fatigued. You don't have to eat. Like,
did you just say Ocarina of Time?
I did, but we're not going to continue saying it. You brought us there. This is not even close to the same game.
I don't hate it. It being either the comparison to Ocarina of Time or this game's implementation of day-night cycle. It can be an awkward mechanic sometimes. It's certainly not perfect, but I actually found the excuse to go and sleep and to have different varieties of sleep and food felt kind of nice for story reasons and RPG-ish. A little more immersive. Give it some RPG-ish. Yeah. And two, you're going to do that in a RPG anyways. You're going to go sleep to recover all your health. So it's not like it's foreign to just go back and have to sleep. But the ability to do, I'm out and adventuring and not close to an inn and I'm just going to take a nap under this tree.
Yeah.
To still get you there. It feels good to me. Is, I guess, kind of annoying mechanic, but gives some immersion. I love the, if you want to do something that should only happen at night, only have it happen at night. Or, creatures that are only going to come out at night, but they're super important that you get them. Makes you, get up and go out and adventure after dark.
Yes.
It worked for me. It can be a bad mechanic in some games. It worked for me here.
I typically don't like day-night mechanics, just in general, but I think this was a fairly good implementation of it. And it slows down your gameplay a little bit, but it's never completely annoying because you can just sleep the day away. You've got that nap mechanic where you can go find an inn and sleep overnight and replenish all your stuff, or you can, like Kenny said, under a tree, just take a nap and the time will pass, but your tiredness percentage will decrease. And so, like, yeah, you've got those things, and it's also tethered to certain game moments as well, also tethered to your inventory. One of my best moments this week was when I had purchased bread and kept it in my inventory, went multiple days without needing to use that bread, and that bread turned to old bread, and then it turned to rot bread, so it decreased over time. However, I also found that my milk got better over time. So at first it turned to sour milk, which is worse, but then if you wait long enough, it turns to yogurt, and it's even better than the milk was.
That's great.
So funny.
That's why the day-night thing's cool to me. Like, or just how time is relevant in this game.
Yeah.
It's normally not on the player's mind in a game like this to worry about that, but that's why overall I think it's good. There was a lot of hate for it in Discord, and I'm assuming it's because of the stores being closed and like the immersion of like, dude, I just want to go in the store, but like it's an RPG. I mean,
or like, I needed to talk to the mayor, but it was in the middle of the night, so he wasn't answering the door. So I slept right outside of his house, and then when the door opened in the morning, I talked to him. Like, it does slow things down, so I get how that could be annoying, but I don't think it's that cumbersome to overcome or to operate in.
I don't either.
Yeah.
We're getting into some pretty specific mechanics without getting too far into the like world at large. I know we talked about the story some, but like, can we talk about all the other things you're trying to do? You're trying to save the princess. You're trying to find the 5 scrolls to upgrade your sword.
Sorry, can I interrupt you? Because I just, in the intro, when he's first ported over and they're telling him what to do, they tell him about the sword, and then he runs out. He leaves, and then they're like, but you've also got to get 5 scrolls. So, like, he doesn't even hear the 5 scrolls.
He just wants to go back. That's what I like about it. It can be serious, like normal fantasy at times, and then it's like all you can eat. And then it's like ridiculous, stupid stuff.
I was very torn on the humor parts of it. Sometimes it was really funny to me, and sometimes Musashi was just an annoying little brat. Maybe I'm just too old, and people need to like get off my lawn. But he totally is. And I know that's what's funny. It just felt very, not like crude 90s humor, but very like 90s humor in tone. And sometimes it had me giggling, and then sometimes I was like, you're beating the dead horse Sith to, too many times Sith, and like you need to stop it.
That character is you, Kenny, first of all.
Yeah, come on now, Kenny. You can't hate yourself like that. Got the beard and everything.
I love his heart, but like he needs to stop.
Love his heart. No, the humor here that is part of what's so funny. Like, even the whole idea of like this Musashi is actually, I think, is the reincarnation of a hero called Musashi that came and saved the kingdom hundreds, thousands of years ago, whatever.
Yeah,
so it's so fun to have this reincarnated guy that doesn't want to be there, does not care.
He's a punk kid reincarnation of like a legend.
Yeah,
it works.
I like
that.
I think it's fun, and it's pervasive throughout the story and all that you're doing.
I mentioned platforming earlier, and I won't call the game a platformer, obviously, but there are a lot more platforming segments in this game than I anticipated, and I loved them a lot.
I love that you loved them, because I don't think some people did, because it's somewhat hard to do in a 3D environment to know if you're angling right, if you're making the jump.
I get that, and maybe I didn't get to some of the complaints, like some of the parts of the game people are complaining about, but the ones that I did, which were like the mine had a lot of, like the conveyor belt section that had a lot of platforming, I quite enjoyed that, and I think it works here because it's not a platformer, but it is a nice blend of different styles of play, of like doing the RPG side, doing this new like combat kind of side where they've got the 2 sword mechanic, but then also platforming and solving some puzzles. That's a nice blend to me. I enjoyed that.
There's a ton of variety here. Like, I know the core gameplay sort of mechanic is like one thing and you sort of do it over and over again, but the way you do it you're doing it, you're unlocking new skills that you're going to use. You're unlocking new abilities. We'll talk about that with your armor that let you do some different things at some point. You're doing these sort of like mini game challenges, and you have these platforming elements. The different parts of the world feel different. The skills you're even using to fight, because you're stealing them from enemies, are different all the time. In a genre that could feel very repetitive and stale if you're not careful, this one had just an amazing variety of stuff and a really good pace as well. The story kept moving. You weren't going too long between thing to thing. I just think the rhythm of this game was really well done.
And I agree. I will say, I had said earlier I had two major complaints. One was the slow sword charge time and all of the wonkiness with that. My other is backtracking. So I do think there's a good pace here, but because there's no quick travel, to know where to go and how to get there are signs that you can read, but trying to walk all the way back through the town to go north, or walk all the way back down through the town to go to the woods to the south, were somewhat annoying. What I had that helped mitigate that this week, and which made the experience a lot of fun, is I didn't pull up the manual, which I often do when I'm playing some of these older games. I was actually able to find the PDF of the strategy guide, the
Brady games,
official strategy guide.
Yeah.
And so I was following along with that this week. That just brought back feelings in and of itself. Like, that was fun.
I missed that.
Yes, they're so
I think they tried to mitigate that some. You know, like when you finish the Steam area, they give you a little shortcut to like go right back to it if you need to.
Tried.
You can the fact that one of your abilities lets you just like climb a wall, which lets you get to a lot of places a lot faster.
Yeah.
That one was
also
cool.
helps sort of shortcut things, and you know, first you got to earn them, and then you can kind of get there much more quickly. It still, you do have certain areas that you're going to go to again and again, and that can be a little old, but at least they tried.
Yeah, and I think they're all cohesive. I think that's a big thing. Like, not because you've got these different mechanics that are disparate that might seem like they don't all go together, but the double swords that operate differently, and the absorption power, along with the legendary armor pieces that you're getting that allow you to do things from climb a wall to double jump to all these other things, I think they all blend together and work nicely to make you feel over time like you are becoming from that reincarnated snotty boy that can't do anything to someone that's a brave Fencer Musashi.
You're getting braver and learning to fence.
Fencing bravely.
I hate you. Can we
bad name.
finish with boss battles? Because that's another thing that I saw complaints with this week that I thought was amazing.
I saw lots of complaints for the first boss, and I was like, that first boss is wonderful. Actually.
I died the first time because you just got big robotic feet smashing down, and the steam that's coming out from it.
Everywhere, yeah,
but
sure.
But it's learnable, and each of the boss fights I thought was interesting because you've got phases. These boss battles are part puzzle, part epic battle.
Sure.
So you've got like a screen-filling creature most of the time that you have to figure out how to take it out, and it felt good all the way through each of the bosses.
I was with y'all. I didn't get super far, but the bosses we did fight had me thinking, but felt reasonable on difficulty, felt beatable, felt rewarding. They did some big things with just like size and scope and making your bosses feel meaningful, and then they were different. It wasn't like you got one boss fight that's over and over again. You get a similar kind of thing. You're like unlocking a thing or stunning a thing or something, and then going and like hitting them for the big damage sort of moments, but how you get there and what you do is totally different. So
you know what?
I'm in y'all's camp. I thought they were.
I bet some of the complaints, specifically on that first boss, are just simply linked to some of the complaints I had earlier with the clunkiness of the overall movement. It takes some time to get used to, but like the boss itself, I have no faults with.
And I think that action games like this, bosses can be samey because you're just hitting them with your sword over and over again. And I've had that complaint with some of the action games that we played. This mitigates that. Because each boss is a different kind of puzzle to solve, and I thought that they did it really well.
Aged.
Early 3D always has a look.
Yes.
I don't mind it. I'm a little nostalgic for it, but I don't think visually it ages super well. It helps that this one has mostly sort of static camera so that it can just sort of have specific shots, and that's what all it's got to worry about. And while it doesn't look bad, it definitely has the vibe of the era.
Nolan, am I incorrect? Hold on. Am I incorrect that Ocarina of Time came out in 1998?
Stop
Hold
talking.
on. I believe that it came out in 1998,
It
same
did.
year. And so I wrote down in my notes that the graphics age like Ocarina of Times. Not bad, but just noticeable. And I'm not
Said
wrong.
it so many times.
Show me where
you're
I'm
not wrong. Sure, but
it's a fine comparison. I
it's
don't know.
not a fine comparison. That's the one thing that like I've disagreed a lot with. That I wasn't angry about, but I'm getting angry about.
Yeah?
Because it's not a fair comparison. That's a very
It's
very
an
different
absolutely
game.
fair comparison.
They both have
Nolan,
polygons. So did every
did
game at
you-
the time.
Did you get to the part of the game where he pulls out a flute and has to...
Listen,
Fight Ganondorf.
Yeah.
I am not the one to ask about PlayStation graphics or N64 graphics because I do have so much nostalgia for it and I love it each time. So like, do I think the graphics are bad? No. But I know what people are talking about when they say that. But one thing I'll say, I think that because Musashi's character model is like a little punk kid and tiny, they could really focus on like, I mean, his model looks great. His hair looks cool, but they focused a lot on environmental stuff and making the world feel alive. Like small things where you go through like a rope bridge area and you're jumping over gaps. And then like in the distance, there'll be somebody like shooting at you like up on a ledge, and
Yep,
there's
I love that
depth to
moment.
the whole world. And I do think it's because the graphic style they chose is like still square. It's very square, but they also let it
Square,
look ugly.
The
at
developer,
times.
right?
Square the developer.
both.
I want.
But they allowed it to
And
be
polygons.
ugly where it needed to be ugly so it could be functional and fun. I forgive them a lot for the polygons here. It looks really good.
How nice. I say that saying like 3D ages. And,
Yeah,
you
it
know, like
does,
there's
yeah.
a moment, but like there were moments that also stood out to me, especially in the world. Not only like shooting you from the distance, like immersion kinds of things, but just implementation kinds of things. You hop on that raft and have to get your way down that river, and all the water's falling everywhere. It's very tough. I had to do that a number of times. I was one logging it, like
Well, I
way
one
longer
logged
than
it to
I
the
wanted
end.
to.
One
Yes.
logging?
Yeah, but like the fact that you can even talk about that and know what we're talking about
Yeah.
is so fun. But like the graphics in that scene when everything starts falling in you and the waterfall, like there's moments where they did a great job making it immersive given what they had to work with.
Yes, in the first play, dude, when when you end up running
Yes,
down
the
that tower,
Bandicoot
Down
section.
the side
and then the
of the tower.
bandicoot running
Yeah.
away while that the stone head is rolling after you. Those are epic moments, and visually
Yeah.
they look so good. But yes, you're right, because like they don't go full fidelity on things that they don't need to. So there's some like soldier like enemies that come after you. They're just kind of plain polygons that are not
Kind of blobby.
shaded
Yeah.
in color or anything. They're fairly bland. But it holistically with the world and what's going on, I think it works. The camera, again, you don't have full control over it. In the town, you can press L2 and R2, I think, to be able to like move it around, rotate it all the way around. But in other areas and environments, you don't have control over it. But I think in games like this, they're still experimenting. It does age, don't get me wrong, but I think they did relatively well of showing you what they wanted to show you. You're not being blocked from seeing what you need to see most of the time. I think
Right.
that they do it fairly well.
Yeah, I wasn't mad. And then on top of that, when they're getting the look down of the game, they also didn't ignore the sound. So like the soundtrack is very square, but we mentioned it, it's fully voice acted.
That in 1998.
It's and it's good. I know that Musashi annoyed you, Kenny. I think you said that he was annoying you. I know it's his voice.
No,
But-
it's not his voice. It's more
Oh.
his
Personality.
like
Just
his
him.
character.
It's literally get off my lawn, Kenny.
Yeah, no, like he was just a little brat.
But it's there. Like every character. It was
Side
very
characters
surprising.
that are just like living in the village have voices.
Nobody's.
Yeah. You could have done the same game, not had voices, and it would have been fine.
Exactly.
And the fact that you did just shows they were trying to make it great.
But I'm telling you, and listen, I think people have different opinions on this, meaning they don't like the voice acting. I think the voice acting is excellent, arguably the best of the era. I think this voice acting is over the top. It's got this anime-esque like vibe and feel, and it's very over the top, but it's intentionally over the top. The quality is clear. It doesn't sound like they recorded it in like in their homes. It sounds like studio recording, and it's high fidelity for the time, and it's quality. I think the voice acting was blowing me away from the start to the finish of my gameplay experience.
Yeah, the writing isn't on the same level, but I'm not gonna sit here and get mad at a game like this for it not being like the best piece of literature,
right?
In the
it's
dialogue
goofy.
and stuff. It's goofy, and so when you have that, it's fine.
I think some of that's translation too. It may not all be.
Yeah, it's
but
always the translation thing,
humor, I think it's harder to translate.
But it's intentionally goofy and over the top. Like, it's not trying to be like this, it's very different than what Square was doing at the time with Final Fantasy, where they were going gritty and realistic and all of this.
Completely.
Yeah.
I like the tone. I just don't think they always pulled it off as well as I'd like.
I did mention that because of the lightheartedness of the voice acting and the graphics, Square would sometimes back themselves into a corner with the edginess. Final Fantasy VIII is in particular, where they really tried to go like serious drama, like edgy. This one, they took that away and they just let it be, and it worked so much better than trying to stay translated well and like serious. It's just fun.
We glossed over the music, but I Nolan, you kind of said it was good,
so
but
good.
I will say it's good. It leaned a little bit video gamey for me, which again I think matches the tone of the game, sort of lighthearted, a little bit silly. I don't know, like it felt video gamey.
Oh yeah, now I know what you mean.
Like, have you ever heard a video game soundtrack and then been like, oh yeah, that's especially that?
I don't know, dude. All the tracks I thought were super impressive, particularly the town music at night. It changes, and it's so
Night
good.
town music, top tier.
I mentioned it before, but we have at least one BFM track on one of our PlayStation lists on our YouTube channel.
Do.
So like, it's good enough to make that list of some of the greats.
Curated.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's great whether or not it sounds like it came from a video game, which it did.
People know what I mean. They absolutely know what I mean.
Some people know what you mean, Kenny.
There is a sequel that came out in 2005 on the PlayStation 2 called Musashi Samurai Legend.
And they made it look like Kingdom Hearts, at least by the cover.
The title's better, at least.
I'm gonna push him
The
off
Kingdom,
this bridge.
yeah, it does have strong Kingdom Hearts vibe. I am under the impression that it did poorly, however.
Yeah, I did not know. Well, first of all, I barely knew about this game, but when I found out there was a sequel on the PS2,
Definitely
I was like,
didn't
oh,
know.
that flopped.
Yeah.
I was like, no way.
I don't know why, but I don't think that BFM already didn't have the audience that other games of the era did.
Right.
Its sequel certainly did not. There is a way to play this game today, and it's purchasing a disc. You can find it for $55 used or loose, or you can pay $255 to play it new.
Yikes.
Wow.
Wait, is that with or without the FF8 demo?
Well, if it's new, I think the FF8 demo's in there.
I think so.
So if
that's
you
probably
want,
why it's a little pricey.
If you want to get a taste of Final Fantasy VIII, this is the way to do it.
$200.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status. That's our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It does require 2/3 of the vote to swing one way or the other. I will begin by saying that I came into this game hesitant. I was excited because it's Square, it's 1998, it's PlayStation, all those things were, it's RPG, everything's working in my favor, but I was hesitant because I hadn't heard much about it before. And why wouldn't I have when that was the peak of everything for me. And although I have some complaints with playing this game this week, the things that I enjoyed far outweigh and outshine any of my complaints. I was loving to come back to each gaming session this week and play along. I perturbed by a few things, but absolutely loved so many other things about this game. Action RPGs or these kind of adventure games aren't my favorite. I love more so the traditional Final Fantasy kind of direction with these kinds of games, RPGs, but this game did it really well, is very quirky, is a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed my time with Brave Fencer Musashi this week. Definitely a thumbs up from me. Kenny?
Yeah, this was an easy yes for me too. It's a fun little game. It has character, it has variety, it's got a great pace. I do think there's some downsides. I'll harp on it one more time, mostly to bug you guys at this point, but the name is terrible and the protagonist is annoying.
Intentionally.
Well, yes, but like just in general, the humor was a little like heavy-handed. I didn't mind their attempts at it. I think there is a place for just straightforward games. Like, I don't always want a crazy epic adventure. I want like this idea of just like a kid going out and just like adventuring but lighthearted, sort of the I don't know, I'm not saving the world and killing a god, I'm just like out at recess rescuing a princess. Like that works for me. I think there's a place for that. And so that was nice. It was a nice kind of change of pace. Square rhymes with care. There's a reason for it. I know that's stupid. They make their games with love. It shows here. You should go check it out.
I thought you were gonna rhyme.
Square cares. Nolan, do you agree?
Square definitely cares. I had never heard of this game, which is usually a problem when you have Square behind it, who is like the company at the time, and like you, Dustin, I was worried, and that's it. I wasn't even excited. I was just worried that I hadn't heard of it. But everything was promising, and there are complaints about the game that I have, mainly in kind of the overall control scheme of the main mechanic, which that should be a deal breaker. But if I were to hold every game at the time on PSX and N64 against those same things, we'd have a problem. Yes, some of those factors age, but they're able to be learned and overcome. And when you do that, there's so much more of the game that is on point and ages well that I had so much fun with the game, and I wanted to dislike it going into it. So also an easy NGP from me. I love its place on the console. I like that it came out in between these two heavy hitters of like traditional RPGs, and like when people discover it, you're in for a treat, and I think that's great. So NGP.
I love that. Did not know what to expect because of the vitriol of some of our community members this week towards this game. But this is why I love us, because we all agree, and we always agree, and there's never any kind of differences.
No.
That means the well-named game Brave Fencer Musashi is New Game Plus certified. But what did you think?
We don't want to know.
The YouTube poll said 32% yes, it's worth playing today, 5% no,
not bad,
and 63% have never played. I would have thought
as expected.
I would have thought never played was even higher.
Yeah, maybe.
But 32% yes. Hey, that sounds on our side. Let's see if that continues with the commentary.
It's not sides.
Yes,
we're all gamers together.
It's right and wrong.
It's family. Ebon Elk said graphics 6 out of 10, music 8 out of 10, gameplay 5 out of 10, story 6 out of 10, and characters 8 out of 10. They're pretty good. I ended up with about 8 hours of playtime this week. However, I've been playing this game since its release and have completed it multiple times. I struggle to recommend this game widely, even though I love it deeply. It's absolutely worth a look at if you want a quirky, charming, and simple game. If the style and humor don't pull you in immediately, then the gameplay, story, and characters are not good enough to give this NGP status.
That's fair, honestly. And especially if you've been playing it that long. You have the history with the game and you've beaten it. I trust that.
Clint who I think played it for the first time this week and played it all
Yes.
the way through. Did
Oh,
Clint
I didn't
beat
know
it?
that.
Clint said Musashi was probably a great game once upon a time and has a lot of things going for it between the humor, characters, and common great soundtrack from Square. Unfortunately, the game just isn't all that much fun. The combat, while having some interesting parts, is pretty bland. The fusion abilities are sometimes neat but usually kind of useless. The mini games annoy me just like the ones in FF7. The day-night cycle very often only serves to get in the way of playing the game. The game is fine, even somewhat good at times, but Goemon came out the same year and is the better blue-haired action-adventure platformer in every way imaginable. Go play that one instead.
There's the comparison I was blanking on earlier. For
You
sure.
think that's the comparison?
I
Just because of
think,
the hair
though-
color?
No. Because of the game. Because of the gameplay. But I do think that it's a different experience. N64
Very.
and this one, very different experience.
Yeah. I see
And you
some
don't
comparison.
just have you don't have to just play one game, thankfully.
But the humor is definitely, that's a good comparison.
It's a very good comparison.
From my memory, I prefer, and we don't all have to decide, this game, Musashi, to that game. But this game falls more in line with my traditional Square JRPG kind of stuff, so no surprise. Jopakoira said, Brave Fencer Musashi is a game I found to be good for its time, but terribly aged. It has a lot going for it, and it's an ambitious project, but a 3D action RPG is just a hard task on PlayStation hardware. There are a bunch of fun and interesting things, like the acquisition of enemy abilities, varying bosses, and puzzle platforming, but the action RPG genre in 3D has improved so much after PS1 that Musashi just feels clunky and hard to approach for a modern gamer. The gameplay between the cutscenes couldn't keep me interested enough, especially after so many PS2 ARPGs like Kingdom Hearts, Dark Cloud, or the Lord of the Ring games that did it so much better. No NGP from me, but a gold star for the ambition.
This was quite early for the 3D platformer
Yeah,
movement. And
that's why it's so impressive to me.
Same. That's
See-
kind of why I land in a different spot.
Right, I don't have a problem with that opinion. I still enjoyed it. I do think recognizing some of those hurdles is worth it.
Yeah.
And they may be larger hurdles for some people. Like, you may just want to play something a little more modern in this genre. But I don't know, that it did overcome them for me.
Yeah. And then finally, Replicated Flame, who was one of the two that submitted this game,
Yep.
said, this is a game I have been putting in for quite a bit, knowing quite a fair bit of people would have their complaints. I just wanted people to try it and give it a fair shake, and come what may. That real meat and potatoes, so to speak, to me is the real meat and potatoes, so to speak, which is good because of the food puns, is the world and characters. The world has a time mechanic, and characters will do different things at different times, at different days, which was super unique for its time. People get annoyed with it, and fair enough, but I think it's astounding. It makes the characters and the world feel more real and lived in. The game, however, is by no means perfect. It's one of those jack of all trades, master of none kind of things. Is it NGP? I will keep it as a solid maybe, because it's 100% not for everybody. Thank you to all who gave it a fair shake. Even if you didn't like it, means the world to me.
I trust
Well,
Replicated Flame.
Through
Like
and through.
It
that,
was for us.
to be able to admit that on the submission and the game you love. Yeah. And we landed on your side, I think.
And I honestly think there's something there with what Replicated said about being a jack of all trades, master of none.
Right.
I see that some.
I see it.
But a jack of
Still
all
fun to me,
trades,
though.
you need those in your life.
Sure.
There were many other people that played along, wrote in, can't include them all right now, but you can go read all of those in our commentary channel, in our Discord. A lot of interesting thoughts now. For now, however, we're setting aside BFM, and we are randomly selecting what the next game is. Even these in-between Patreon pool games for the summer pool parties have been good and interesting.
Almost.
I think the last one was the Game Boy Ninja Turtle one, maybe, but it was in there. It was in
I thought we
there.
gave one that no New Game Plus recently. That was last week.
I think you are correct. And that game that
Mean
we
Bean
all
Machine.
remember is what?
Mean Bean Machine.
Yeah.
So we're close to
We're
a perfect
close.
summer.
From our Retro Master list, randomizing now. I want to speak to Kenny.
Oh no, I'm out.
Speak
out.
to me.
Kenny, this game came out in 1987 for the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Okay, I see
I'm
why you're
fine.
speaking to me and not Nolan.
It's old.
I love when we go back to the NES, so I'm
do too.
excited.
It is a part of a series that I know Kenny has some affection for. That's why I'm kind of very excited that this was randomly
okay.
selected this week.
Trying to think. I'm like, did Wheel of Fortune have a sequel? I'm
Right,
trying to,
because that's where your brain goes to.
What?
This is the second game in its series and is subtitled Luminaries of the Legendary Line.
Oh.
Didn't we
Is
just
it
play a game
Of
with
Lumina? Oh, we did.
Lumina?
That's so
Lumina.
random. We are moving away from the A side of things, but we are sticking
Right.
with the RPG side of things.
Okay.
Because this game was developed by Chunsoft, published by Enix. The comparisons here. This game, Kenny,
Whoa.
is called Dragon Quest II, or Dragon Warrior 2 when it came to North America.
Wow. We've played the
I-
first one.
On the podcast?
Yes.
Love the first one. It was one of my staple early gaming kind of core games that I played forever and ever and ever. And there's a whole franchise, including stuff that came out like recently that looks absolutely ridiculous because they've gone in a weird anime direction with this series. I haven't played any but the first.
Hold on.
Oh.
This doesn't happen often
Ever.
on the show where we've played the first one and then we get to play the next one.
Right,
So we get
it's
to
usually
reference back.
Out of random
Yeah.
order. We get to reference back, Nolan, but we played the first one in episode 24. I don't think we're going to remember much of that experience.
I'll re-listen to it. Is that the one where Kenny's talking about the clouds?
No.
No,
That's
that's
Phantasy Star 3 or something. It was
Okay.
bad.
I'm
Thi-
excited.
I'm about to farm some slimes.
You are going to.
I am
Yes,
gonna-
you
Kenny,
are.
can you come to my
Grind.
dorm room and play this all the way through, please? That's what we
I
did.
will. I will stream for you guys. some this week.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
I'll be playing
I will
handheld
fall
this week.
asleep to that. I think there's many ways to play it today. Like I think it might be on the Switch. I think it might be on iOS and other
I
things.
bet.
It's also known as the most difficult Dragon Quest games, which is scary because the first one's
Really?
difficult.
That is
The
scary.
first one was
Have you
tough.
been
I'm
poisoned in the
gonna
first
go-
one?
It's
Yeah.
I might challenge myself and lean in this week and try and beat it and try and go guide free. Both of those are really hard to
I'm
do in a week.
using a guide, boy.
I'm using a guide. Find a copy of Dragon Warrior 2, Dragon Quest 2, Luminaries of the Legendary Line, and play it along with us this week.
Join us in Discord, please. We need to hit our next member count, which is 2,500, and we're so close. All we need is a few of you to join, so it's easy to do that. All you have to do is go to discord.gg/newgameplus.
We also want to invite you to patreon.com/NGP podcast, where you can, I'm growing as a host, where you can support the show. You enjoy what we do on a weekly basis, bringing you the most entertaining, most consistent, most retroist of retro gaming content in the world. That's where you do it. You'll be joining our large list of producer level supporters, including Adam, Alex, Marlene, Antonin, Ben, Big Dude, Brunt, DH Bowser, Ellis, Fishy, Francesca, Gimbin, Harold, J. Robert, Jake, Jared, Joey, Jordan, Justin, Clint, Knickknack, Corey, Levi, Maxima, Not Enough Dog, Pedro, Sajan, Shauna Thomas, Unbelievable, Siegfried, and Zion. We want to say a big shout out to Kenny's Beard,
Again?
who joined
Kenny,
us
you can't talk-
recently and has now upped their
Oh.
support. So everybody, shout out. You're welcome.
My favorite thing is if Kenny's Beard is doing a running gag where they're going to up every week, so you have to keep shouting out your beard each and every week.
That'd be my
You
favorite.
just say that because you're trying to bait him. Kenny's Beard does what it wants. Also, our director level supporters, you guys go above and beyond. Bro Jim, Daniel, Garlisle, Super Hypered. You
Best.
guys are the best of the best.
You can follow us on our social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. All of those links are in our show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Fillet. Join us next week as we play Dragon Warrior 2. Until then, I'm still Cupcake.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a food item.
Bacon.
Could you not think of one food item, Kenny?
He joked.
And this has
It's
been
like tree.
Yum Yum New Game Plus.